overwhelming for it. My wife doesn't pray and spends most of the time trying to plan fashion shows and girl parties. As her husband, this gets me sad, which turns into anger. He's advised both of us. You guys need to see a counselor. No. Not a joke. You guys need to see a counselor. This is not resolved in the QA session. You guys need to, if you're not compatible and it's not working, then obviously there's love in every marriage, and you have to do everything to make a marriage work. And it's not just about what's religious and not religious. It's about making both people emotionally happy with each other. Counseling is sometimes the only option. And I know we think counseling is taboo and people that are sick in the head need counseling. That is not true. Seeking counseling is actually a sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, so it's not beneath any of us. The Prophet ﷺ had an argument. He had an argument with Ayesha radiallahu anha, and they couldn't resolve it. So she said, we need a counselor. And he said, okay, who do you recommend? She goes, you pick. And so he said, okay, let's get Zubayr. And she said, no, he loves you too much. Like, you can't have Zubayr. So he said, okay, let's pick your dad, Abu Bakr. She said, fine. So he came. And they started telling, and so he said, Rasul said to Aisha, why don't you start? Why don't you tell him what happened? And she goes, no, I want you to start, and I want to make sure you get it right. Look, he's the Rasul of Allah, but he's a husband in the house. You're like, how could she say that? She's his wife. This is a very family situation. These are human beings. So she says that. And Abu Bakr as-Siddiq is not, he cannot take the Abu Bakr hat off. Right? He's not a father-in-law ever anymore. He's basically only the right hand of the Messenger. So he sees his daughter speak like that to the Rasul of Allah. He tries to grab her neck and strangle her. You speak to Rasulullah this way, and the Prophet ﷺ had to break it up and kick him out of the house and say, okay, we can handle this ourselves. And the problem disappeared after that. But the point of it is, even the counselor to humanity said we should get a counselor. The counselor to humanity said we should get a marriage counselor. What is that telling you? It's not beneath you. It's not humiliating. It's not embarrassing. And I urge some of you young men and women that are going into the psychology field, pursue counseling. It's a dire need of the ummah. It's a dire need. Youth counseling, marriage counseling, and study it from the Islamic perspective, inshallah. By the time you guys graduate and get your higher credentials, hopefully institutions for learning that stuff from the Islamic perspective will be in place. And I pray for that, because we have to develop those institutions. Anyhow, could you come to my school? Please email me. No. Sorry, I can't come to your school. I can't even go to my kid's school. Is there available discussion or are there resources beneficial for youth that want to be leaders? You shouldn't want to be a leader. You should just have qualities of leaders. And then leadership just comes. So wanting leadership is not a good thing. But there are plenty of things you can learn that can instill good leadership qualities in you. Actually, the Imam of our masjid, Imam Zia from Irving, Texas, wrote a thesis on leadership in Islam. Pretty cool book. Qualities of leadership, best practices for Muslim leaders in any capacity. I did a series, I think it's up on YouTube. It's on our podcast too. It's called When Muslims Work Together. And it's an outline for Muslims to be able to do organizational work and get good leading habits too. When you come into Brooklyn College, I don't know. Is there any example in the Quran and Sunnah about two potentials getting married and then things not working out? Actually, but things not working out, the examples are the wife of Lut, the wife of Nuh, Fir'aun's wife wouldn't work out. Yeah, that was kind of obvious there. There are actually also really evil couples that worked out, like Abu Lahab and his wife worked out pretty well, but they're working out in Jahannam now, so that's okay. That's cool too. There's actually marriage, the marriage of Zayd radiallahu anhu, which is described in Surah Al-Ahzab, Surah number 33, the only companion mentioned by name, who married a good woman, a good sahabiya, but he came from a different class of society and she was from a different class of society, and they had different cultural background and different lifestyle that even happened in the Sahaba's time. So it didn't work out at the end, and he kept begging the Prophet ﷺ to let him divorce his wife, but the Prophet kept turning him down because it was the Prophet ﷺ's recommendation that they should get married, which is another awesome lesson. Just because a sheikh recommended somebody doesn't mean it's going to work out. You can't blame the sheikh later. The Prophet recommended this marriage, but it didn't work out in the end. She just couldn't reconcile the two different lifestyles, even though they're both Sahabis and they're both great. Just because you're good Muslims doesn't mean you're compatible either. That's the other cool thing here, right? He has a lot of taqwa, doesn't mean he's going to work out for you. You could still hate his guts, or not like him, or whatever. It could still happen. So spirituality and compatibility are two different things, right? So there's the example of that also in the Quran. The only marriage proposal process in the Quran, the only one, is how Musa got married. It's a great story. One of my favorites to tell in the whole Quran. Inshallah, I'll come back soon and tell you guys. It's really remarkable. Just the details in there on how the marriage takes place, the marriage process, which so many of you have trouble with. The Quran has pretty amazing insight into that subject through the story of Musa alayhi salam and how he got married.